The Home Tech Podcast is supported by you. To find out more, go to HomeTech.fm/support. This is the Home Tech Podcast for Friday, July 24th. From Sarasota, Florida, I'm Seth Johnson.
And from Denver, Colorado, I'm Jason Griffin. How you doing, Seth?
Pretty good. I sound a lot better than I did last week, don't I?
You do. You most definitely do. So that's good news.
Yeah. I was editing the show, and I was like, I don't sound that bad. And then I listened back to it. Of course, it comes over the podcast, and I'm like, wow. Well, it sounds pretty bad. I should probably take a week off next time I have to do something like that.
Yeah, it didn't sound good.
No. Well,
but we've all been there.
Yeah. Well, I've got a little follow-up on my air conditioning woes. I have a new air conditioner now. It works. And the Erica comes out to me and says, it's hot in the house. I'm like, well, they just put a new air conditioner thing in. Why is it hot? And I go in and like the thermostat's cranked up to 83. And 83 in Florida, it's not a very good temperature to be at. That's when you start to feel it, I think.
Right.
I think I cranked it down, put it back. Next day, same thing. What is going on? So I'm running this Ecobee thermostat, and something in the back of my head reminded me, like one day I cranked up the app, it came up with some feature, and I just haphazardly just like clicked yes or whatever just to get the little
like
dialogue.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Just go away. I don't want to deal with this. I need to turn down my thermostat to 73 or whatever it's supposed to be at. So
yeah,
I'm thinking there's a feature that exists inside this Ecobee app, right? And I have no idea what it is or how to turn it off. So some Googling, I found out the feature is called Ecobee Plus. Still had no idea where it is inside of my app. I had no idea. So my wife's like, just Google how to disable Eco Plus. And I did that, and I clicked the first link I came to, had great directions on like how to disable it and turn it off. Went and did that real quick, turn the temperature back down. And I start scrolling down the article. I'm like, hey, why is Richard Gunther's picture on this page?
Oh, how funny.
And
that's great.
I'm on the DMZ the entire time. So yeah, Digital Media Zone.
They got the scoop on this one. Oh, I'm seeing this now. Ecobee forces customers to enable new Eco Plus features. There he is. There's Richard.
Or if you're just mindless, like me, it wasn't so much forced. It was just like, yeah, next. See that little OK button right there? I hit that, and it went
yeah.
away.
Well, it looks like from this article, though, that what Richard's saying is that basically they throw you into this setup user flow, and then they don't give you a way to exit out without enabling it. So you basically have to go through the flow, enable it, and then go back in to disable it. And that just seems like the kind of thing that would really piss Richard off.
It didn't make, let's just say it didn't make certain people in this house happy. But, I appreciate the sentiment and what they're trying to do, but we're in the middle of a pandemic too. And like everyone's home all day. So it's not like no one is sitting in the house right now where we have it, cranked down to whatever, like 79, I think is what we normally keep it at. Like it doesn't need to go up any further than that. So I don't know, like just seems like bad timing for a feature that probably, has some merit to it. I think like if I was not working from home, or if not everybody was not working from home right now, I think I would probably turn that on, not worry about it.
Right. Well, there's more than you in the home, right? It's always the case. I have those same battles here. All right, well, let's jump in. We have a great show this week. We had Aaron Emigh on. He is the CEO and founder of Brilliant. Brilliant.tech is the website. Cool product. You'll probably recognize it if you go take a look at their site. It's got a pretty unique design, and kind of their whole premise or thesis around the smart home is that really there should be smart home control integrated into the fabric of the home. We shouldn't be so reliant on our phones and devices like that to control our homes. And they set out on a mission a while back to make that control more integrated into the home and to do that in an affordable fashion. And it was really fun to learn about that. And also Aaron's just a really interesting guy, very interesting background, highly successful entrepreneur, has run several companies before this. And so he shares, in addition to the story about Brilliant, shares some of his backstory and some tips and things about where he's found success in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship. So really enjoyed that conversation. Be sure to stay tuned for that. In the meantime, Seth, what do you say we jump into some home tech headlines?
Let's do it.
In a strong signal that the housing market is ready to lead a post-COVID economic recovery, builder confidence in the market for newly built single-family homes jumped 14 points to 72 in July, according to the latest National Association of Home Builders and Wells Fargo Housing Market Index, the HMI. The HMI now stands at a solid pre-pandemic reading in March before the outbreak affected much of the nation. So this seems like a good sign.
Yeah, I'm glad they're confident. Like right now, I'm just watching the world burn and thinking, I'm glad I don't have to step outside my door. But they're closer to the home building and buying process than I am. So hopefully we see we get this thing over with quickly, and we can get back to building homes, because that really does. I mean, in this area, that really does drive in almost the entire state. A lot of local economies are heavily dependent on home building here in Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the case probably pretty much everywhere. Story from CE Pro here does say, while the housing market is clearly rebounding, challenges exist. Lumber prices at a 2-year high, apparently. Rising costs for other building materials and skilled labor shortages were some of the specific issues that they discussed. So not clear sailing here for the home building industry necessarily, but good news nonetheless. There's obviously been a lot of questions on all of our minds about the economy, and hopefully this is a sign. Nobody knows for sure, but hopefully this is a sign that things will rebound quickly as we come out of this crazy phase that we're going through right now.
Oh, I definitely, I think it's a spring, man. It's all like just every time you have to stay home, people just wind that spring up, and when they're ready to go, boom, they'll go out. So
yep,
we'll be ready for it. Well, speaking of staying at home, Zoom has become the de facto standard for online communications during the pandemic, but the company has found that it's still a struggle for many employees to set up the equipment and software to run a meeting effectively. Jason, you and I run into that almost every week, it seems like. Why is my mic not working? I don't know. The company's answer is an all-in-one communications appliance with Zoom software ready to roll with a simple touch interface. Pretty cool idea. Just plug and play Zoom meetings. There you go. Not a bad idea at all.
Yeah. No, I think this is a cool idea. Perhaps not for the more technical audience who's very proficient with jumping onto a Zoom app in an iPad or on an iPhone or on a laptop or whatever the case may be. But there may be people who want the ability to do Zoom calls who would benefit from this. I think a lot about like my wife and her family. They do a ton of family Zoom calls. And I know some of the folks on that call aren't the most technically proficient. So having something like this, and I think it's just kind of a cool form factor. So yeah, pretty neat device, and probably something that certainly integrators in the audience would want to be familiar with. I have to imagine clients are going to be asking about stuff like this as the work from home thing continues to really become the new normal.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. This is a 27-inch touchscreen, basically a big tablet with some 3 cameras designed for high resolution video and 8 microphones, basically for that, echo cancellation audio. So a nice piece. I think integrators will want to do something a little more, I don't want to say extravagant, but like something better. Like this should be the baseline. This should be what, like, Jill in marketing gets, right?
For sure.
This is what everybody else in the company should have to do. But our integrators are usually dealing with like the C-level executives, and they're going to want to look good. They should have like the HD cameras and the full lighting and the network that can handle everything. I think there's still a big learning curve as to what makes for a good Zoom meeting and for audio and video. And as that starts to narrow down, I think integrators are going to be poised to take advantage of being able to put in some like almost professional studio stuff inside of homes. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
As you said, as it becomes the new norm.
Agreed. Yeah. All good things to be aware of here. So moving on from there, Flow by Moen and Yonomi have announced today a new partnership aimed at accelerating innovation in the insurance industry. The new partnership lowers the barrier of entry for insurance carriers seeking to leverage the smart home by simplifying the smart device installation and verification process for both the consumer and the insurer. Yonomi will automatically show participating carriers if a device with the Flow by Moen smart water security system is installed and active in the consumer's home. So an interesting story here. I continue to monitor and be intrigued by the insurance industry play in the smart home and what that's going to look like as that as it continues to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. And two pretty good products. I actually have both of these in my house. Well, you know me because it's on my app, but I've got one of those flows still installed and chugging along out there, turning on and off my water every night. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool update. Well, Jason, there's a surprise. Have you tried the new Peacock app? Have you tried NBC's new streaming service, Peacock?
I have not. I have not tried that one yet.
Well, there's a lot to enjoy, including a show called A Brave New World. Which did you read that book when you were in high school?
I've read that one. It's been a really long time.
It's one of those high school books where they try and blow your mind away with like, look, they're talking about sex in this book. Books are naughty, and then like it's like probably one of the more boring books to read. But so they've made a TV show out of it, and it's actually it's okay. It's fun. It's fun to watch. But there's a big special surprise that you can get into in the terms and condition for Peacock. No one reads the small print there, so what they did is they snuck in a cake recipe buried into one of the subsections that explains third-party services and authentications. There are instructions on how to make a chocolate cake that, quote, a beloved member of your family could adore. So yeah, check that out. There's a nice little chocolate cake recipe down there. And I think I'm going to make it. I've been watching the Peacock app. It's kind of a cool app. Different. It's different, Jason. It's free, I guess. I don't know. There's commercials and stuff. I don't really care. But what I think is most interesting about this one is that they've got a concept of channels on there. So if you click, like, you can watch just a regular show or movie off of it. But if you click channels, it gives you like a list of channels, which are just like really like TV shows. Like right now I just clicked on it and NBC News is playing, but I can switch to the Office channel, which plays Office all the time. It's a pretty cool app. We haven't really talked much about it other than like the build up to Peacock. But I think it's actually really done the streaming and cake baking world a good service here. I think it's pretty good. I think it'll be one of the better ones out there.
I will give it a try, and I got a good laugh out of this story as somebody who has a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of experience in crafting terms of service language and maintaining terms and conditions agreements. It is, I just have to imagine the people doing this. Hats off to them. That's great.
I legitimately thought you were going to say crafting cakes, but
nope.
You went a different direction.
Nope, I have almost no experience crafting cakes. I do have experience crafting terms and condition agreements, and it's not fun.
No, not at all.
Not fun at all.
Mice type is what I used to call it.
So kudos to them for slipping that in there. That's pretty funny. I'm going to call a little bit of an audible here, and I do want to touch on a quick story that came in through the chat room. Bruno, hanging out in the chat room tonight as we record, sent this one over from ZDNet. Chinese security researchers said they can alter the firmware of fast chargers to cause damage to connected charging systems, such as melting components or even setting devices on fire. The technique, named BadPower, all one word, was detailed last week in a report published by, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, a research unit of Chinese tech giant Tencent. Shui Wu. I'll try. What the hell? No.
Wanwu?
Wanwu?
I don't know.
Xuanwu.
Close enough.
Yeah. You can't fault me for that one. That's just a tough one. Anyways, according to researchers, BadPower works by corrupting the firmware of fast chargers, a new type of charger that was developed in the past few years to speed up charge times. And yeah, this can eventually result in your device catching on fire. That's crazy.
I have a couple of those fast chargers, just like the bigger power adapters, bricks, I guess, for your iPhone or iPad. And you can plug it in and like it'll charge your phone a lot. I mean, it charges it pretty quickly. Like if you're down to 30% or whatever, you plug it in, 15 minutes later, you're probably back in 80, 85%. So you get the rest of the day out of it just by plugging in for a couple of minutes. But I always like, if you touch the phone or you touch the power adapter, it's always like warm. I've always wondered about that. So like eventually we're just going to plug the phones directly into the wall, right? and we won't have to worry about this fast charging adapter. We'll just plug them straight into 120 or 240, whatever you have. Put them into mains, and you're good to go.
Well, or like wireless charging, I think is getting more popular. I don't know a lot about it, but
yeah, I guess everything's going wireless now. So yeah,
it's just crazy. It's all going wireless, Seth. I thought you knew. Yeah, I don't get it though. Fast chargers. So these are like the actual charger. It has a network connection.
I'm guessing it goes back through the phone. So the fast chargers, a charger isn't just like it is with your car where you just connect the two leads anymore. Like there's computers on each end that control like how fast you can charge the battery up and how much to basically save the battery life over time. So there's actually computers on both sides. So I'm thinking what they're saying is that they can basically fake out the little computer on the other end saying, I need more juice, constantly. And as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, it just catches on fire. Got a nice little article here about, hackers destroying things and catching stuff on fire. So,
well, there you go. In your, what's the word I'm looking for? Fear-mongering headlines of the week. Anyways, good stuff to be aware of.
Who knew 5 volts could ruin your day?
I'm not going to lose any sleep over this one yet. Maybe won't rush out to buy a fast charger. But anyways, thanks for sharing that, Bruno. It's a pretty wild story. All the links and topics that we've discussed on our show this week can be found in our show notes at HomeTech.fm/313. While you're there, don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter. We'll send you show reminders and other occasional updates about all the great stuff going on here in the world of home tech. Once again, that link is HomeTech.fm/313.
And don't forget, you can join us in the chat room live Wednesdays, typically starting sometime between 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And you can find out more on how to do that at HomeTech.fm/live.
All right, Seth. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our interview. Again, we've got Aaron Emigh, the CEO and founder of Brilliant. We hope you enjoy. Hey, Aaron, welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here. We're looking forward to jumping in. Let's do that. Let's get started right away. We've got a lot to cover. Really looking forward to this conversation. Before we dive in and get to some of these other topics, let's talk a little bit about your background. We always like to start with this with all of our guests, and invariably all of our guests have interesting backgrounds, and yours, I would say, is a very much a right at the top of that list in terms of going all the way back to sort of your upbringing and talking a little bit about how that experience sort of shaped you and some of the lessons that you've taken from the unique background into your work today.
Well, I'm guessing that the aspect of uniqueness you're talking about is the fact that there's a good chunk of my childhood that was spent without electricity or running water and modern amenities like that, which may not sound like the most natural background for a smart home entrepreneur. But perhaps it was an inspiration for me to come a little further forward. As long as I was already going 100 years ahead in home technology, why not add to that?
That's right. Yeah, you've talked about that. I've heard you talk about that before, and sort of that experience of growing up in, I believe it was New Hampshire, sort of subsistence farming, and really how that experience, you've sort of seen more evolution in your lifetime in terms of, again, some of those very basic things like that we all take for granted these days. And
yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And when you look at what Brilliant is a smart home control that's built into the home that takes all the different technological systems in the house and gives you a user experience for them that's a natural integrated part of the home. And that was perhaps in some sense a more natural thing for me to want to do, having, during some of my childhood carried around kerosene lanterns from place to place for lighting and really appreciating the value of a light switch, and going out with a bucket to a well to get water, and then having a little hand pump at one place inside the house, and then having plumbing, and similarly with heat, to go from having a couple of wood stoves around the house to where you just have a thermostat that you can decide what temperature it is. I have probably more of an appreciation than some people do of the value of these things. And as a result, when I was finding the smart home technology to be in that kind of early stage. It's sort of in the equivalent stage of carrying that kerosene lantern around, and really wanting it built into the walls of the house as a fundamental capability that's available to everyone who's in the space. So perhaps that living through that evolutionary process in a couple other critical areas of the house might have made me a little bit faster to feel the same way about smart home technology that I had about plumbing or electricity.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's stay on that topic of sort of evolution. I've heard you say also that, in probably 10 years or so, we won't even be talking about smart homes. We won't feel compelled to use that qualifier. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. If you think back 20 years ago, everyone was really excited about smart cars and what that was going to mean. And they were talking about how, you know what, in the future, we're going to have computers in cars, and computers are going to run the engine, and computers are going to do this, and computers are going to do that. The average car now has, I think the last number I saw was about 45 separate computers in it. And they're controlling various aspects of the engine. They're monitoring all kinds of sensors. They're giving diagnostic information. You've got infotainment centers. You've got all of this processing going on, and no one's talking about smart cars. It's just that now cars are better than they used to be. They're more fuel efficient. They're more powerful. They're more reliable. They tell you when there's a problem. They're better, and that's what they are. And similarly, we're at a stage now with technology being deployed in the home where it's sufficiently new that people are talking about it as a separate thing, because most homes aren't smart yet. Now it's growing really fast, and as a result, we can easily extrapolate from that and see that a few years out, we're going to be in a situation where we're not talking about smart homes anymore. Just homes are better than they used to be, and you wouldn't go and buy a home that doesn't have smart technology built into it any more than you'd go and buy a home that doesn't have plumbing built into it or doesn't have heating built into it, or you'd buy a feature phone that's not a smartphone. These are just things you wouldn't do because the value is so compelling, and bringing technology into the home clearly falls into that category.
Right. Yeah. That's a good analogy you made with moving from smart car. Well, what they called smart cards, I guess. I do remember kind of being into a car phase and during that time, and having an old 1969 Pontiac that was completely unreliable. I mean, it was just a piece of garbage. But you get a new car and it has a computer in it, and then the computer dies, and that's like, this is the end of the car almost, right? So it's like it has many different little things in there that you can't figure out what do because the computer is going crazy or something like that. With the Pontiac, you could fix it, but with the new one, you had to go get this module thing and shove it in between the seats, So it was kind of a weird transition there. And now, like you're saying, now you just kind of expect your car to go in, you sit in it, you press the button, and it cranks up. So.
Yeah, and I think similar to that box that you might have put in your Pontiac early on that would then die, the very earliest wave of smart home technology, wasn't necessarily the easiest to configure or the most reliable. But what we're seeing now is that as it's becoming sort of more mission critical in the home, that it's getting very reliable and something that you can really depend on. Whether it's to give access to your house for people or package deliveries or home automation functions, climate control, lighting, all kinds of different functions. And they really work well enough now that it is more like that, later stage as the computers in the car got more mature, that now they just work really well. And it's pretty rare that you hear that an ECU blew up in a modern car. It just doesn't really happen.
Exactly. That's where I was going with that. And it's now you get in, you press the button, your car starts up magically. And, it's that button it's analog is the key you used to have to stick in and turn. And it works just the same way people expect when they sit in the car. They press the button, it turns on. When you go to your wall and you hit the button on the wall, the light turns on. That's what's always happened. That's what always should happen. So yeah, I really like that analogy, and seeing how fast the car industry has progressed in that particular space with this, something as what I would say is as simple as turning on a car, because it seems like it's a pretty simple operation. Like, it gives me hope for your 10 years there. I was thinking maybe that's aggressive, but it could be 10 years. We could be about 10 years out. That leads us over to Brilliant, being one of those devices that sits on the wall that I press a button on and something has to happen. What got you interested in the smart home here?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a high level, just the smart home market is in this amazing place where it's gathering enormous momentum. Everybody sees the value proposition. Everybody, sees the importance of it. And yet there's no clear leader. There's nobody who's really provided that user interface within the home in a simple, clear, compelling way. And so the personal experience that I had was I was doing a home remodel project and putting in a bunch of smart tech because it had been quite a while since I'd really gone deeply into smart tech, and I wanted to see how it had evolved. And I found that the devices themselves were now really good and really useful, and I liked them. But when I put them in my house and was living in my house, I really disliked the experience of interacting with the technology in my house because I had to do it through my smartphone and a whole bunch of different apps on the phone. And if you're sitting on the couch and you want to dim your lights, and what you need to do is pull out your phone or go get it if it's charging in a corner somewhere, authenticate yourself to it, scroll around to the right app, launch that, wait for it to come up, navigate some menus. By the time you're actually able to do the thing that you wanted to, you're frustrated that you have a smart home at all, because it's a lot easier to just go and push the button on the wall. And similarly, it's even worse for other people who aren't the technical expert in the house, who don't have all the apps installed. So if you're a house guest or a kid who doesn't have a smartphone, or just a less tech forward member of the household, you're kind of out of luck. And there's a reason why, the point you were making earlier about the car still seems to work the same way. You still get to push buttons and whatever in the car. You don't control your car through the smartphone just because it has computers. That would be a really awkward way to control the car, where now you have to drive with your phone. But that's kind of what that first stage of evolution is with the home, where, oh, now you're supposed to control your house through the phone. Well, that's silly. Nobody wants that. It makes sense for remote access and remote monitoring and remote control, where it is just you who should have the right to do that, and you want to restrict that access. But when you're in the house and you want to change the environment that you're in, that should be available as an ambient capability to anybody in the space. So making that really a part of the home and having it, as you were saying, function the way it always has before, in a familiar and comfortable way, is really important. And that's what Brilliant is really doing, where we made a controller that controls all of your different smart home devices, and it just goes into the wall of the house. But it goes in there replacing a standard light switch or a row of standard light switches. So the wiring is already there. It's already there in locations in your home where you would want to control it. You don't need batteries, you don't need cords. And it's also, the light switch is the most used home control in the house. So it's taking advantage of some place that you're already interacting with all the time to control your house, and just making it so you can't just turn lights on and off there. That's also where you can see who's at the door, and you can change the temperature, and you can lock or unlock the doors, and you can do home automation scenes that will play music and change the lighting and all of these different kinds of functions, and just making that a very easy thing to drop into the home and really transform your home without needing a whole new infrastructure for it.
Yeah, that's I'm still laughing from the analogy you gave about walking around with your phone and trying to crank up your car with the phone. I have that in my head. It's like something that I'm sure somebody has tried or will be trying. But so with Brilliant, you don't need to have that friction of the smart home, because the device is built in to the hard walls of the home, where you can go over and press a button, execute a scene, or like you said, change the temperature in your thermostat without having to pick up a phone and navigate and find the app and all that good stuff. Which I imagine works really well if you're a guest to the house too. Somebody comes in and, what is all this technology in here? And that generally happens at my house. Why do you have so many buttons on your wall? Well, just press one of them and the light will turn on. But this is probably a little more approachable.
I was just going to say, the discoverability aspect of it is really, really important, that somebody who's not familiar with it can just walk up to it and easily interact with it. What's the first thing you're going to do? Well, you're going to touch the screen. And then when you do, you'll see the things that are common there, and you'll be able to choose the thing that you want, which is something you can do with a screen that you can't necessarily as easily do with a bunch of apps or running on even if it's like an iPad sitting out there. Each of them has a different UI, and you have to select the one and navigate around on it. And then similarly, with a voice interface. And we do build in Amazon Alexa voice services, and we work with Google and with Siri and so on as well. But that ability to discover things is really something that a visual interface is useful for.
Let's take just a quick step back too. I know I'm just assuming that everybody knows what Brilliant is. So let's go ahead and talk about what you offer as a product, like a physical product that I could go down to the store right now, buy, pick up, and put in my house.
Yeah, so we have several product lines. The first one is our line of smart home controls, and that's the one that's been out in the market for about a year and a half now, and keeps on adding new capabilities. And it's got a touch screen on it, and it shows photos of your family or your pets or your vacations or what have you when it's not in use, or it can display nothing if you prefer that. But then you can just tap on it, and you can control all of the different systems in the home. So someone rings your Ring doorbell, you'll see the video on your wall. You'll be able to talk with them. It's a single button to unlock your smart lock and let somebody in. If you have a Sonos system, for example, you'll see all your playlists and favorites on Pandora and Spotify and iHeartRadio, whatever you like to use, and you can reconfigure your zones and do all that kind of stuff. It has smart lighting functions built into it. You can control your thermostats. You can control basically all of the different smart home systems, whether it's a lock or a garage door or what have you, are all put together in one single place. And it's got a really nice intuitive UI, both visually, and then it also has touch sliders for the lights that it replaces. So it's a very high quality dimmer switch that's compatible with modern LEDs. It's got a motion sensor in it that allows you to do occupancy based lighting for energy efficiency and convenience. And then it also has actually a video camera that can be used for remote video monitoring and for baby cam and for nanny cam and for stuff like that. And there are mobile apps on both iOS and Android that let you remotely monitor and control and walk you through installation and a bunch of different kinds of things like that. And now we also have a new product line of smart dimmer switches, which are more of a conventional smart switch, but it's sort of from a design language point of view, very similar to the Brilliant control and available and compatible colors to the Brilliant control. And it also has occupancy-based lighting. It has a unique feature where you can actually double tap on it and run a home automation scene. So in the same way that with the Brilliant control, you can define scenes that control lighting and climate and locks and music and anything. So we find as we start to automate homes that there aren't 1,000 ways that we use the home. There are about 12 ways that we use the home. And when you say like, I'm going to cook dinner now, or I'm going to watch a movie now, I'm going to read a book now, I'm going to bed now, these kinds of things, there's a standard configuration that you want things in, and that tends to be the most convenient way to set up automation. So the way that you can do that with the switch is, even though it doesn't have a screen or a microphone, the way that the Brilliant control does, you can just double tap on it and it'll run that scene. So you do that up in your bedroom, and it'll shut down the house, lock the doors, turn off the lights, turn down the temperature, etc. So this is a new product line there. We also have a smart plug that we're coming out with, which allows you to control area lighting or any other kind of thing that you want to control the power outlet to, basically. So this is basically what the physical products are for Brilliant.
So I just want to clarify on that. So you have the control, which that's like the brain, I guess. Essentially, you have to have one of those, and then you can have a switch and a plug, and all that communicates back and talks to it.
Yeah, a typical home will have 2 or 3 Brilliant controls, let's say, although some large homes might have 5, 10. I think our record is 104 in one home.
Wow.
And then a bunch of light switches, depending on what you want to automate. Basically, the way you think of it is, where are the main places in the house that you want to be able to control things? And put Brilliant controls there. And it comes in 4 different models, so depending on whether there's a single switch or a row of 2 or 3 or 4 switches that you're replacing. And it just replaces the light switches and installs just like light switches. And then anywhere that you want to be able to control the lighting in the home, which is one of the main things you want to do with home automation, then you'd put in a Brilliant smart dimmer switch in there. So, there might be 10, there might be 20 in a house. It really depends. But one of the things about Brilliant is you can kind of dip your toe in the water. You can try just buy one and put it in there and see if you like the experience. And then as you see the value, then you add more things in, and you might realize that you really want a video intercom capability between your living room and your kid's room, and put one in there, and so on. So a lot of times people will start with one or two, and then they'll buy a few more as they realize the value of having them throughout the house.
Got it. A few minutes ago, you mentioned design language, and I want to stay on that for a second because you guys do have a pretty unique physical design. The look of the device is pretty striking. Talk to us about the decision and sort of what you feel like in terms of the form factor makes the device maybe extra usable or unique.
Yeah, I love product design. It's just so fun to think about how a product is going to work, and it's to look back at the different design ideas that we were batting around, and how different they were, is to realize like what a profound impact that really has in the product that you ultimately launch. And what we felt really strongly as we were evaluating all these different ideas was that we didn't want this to look like a piece of alien technology that had gotten stuck onto your wall, and we didn't want it to look like a smartphone that was suddenly on the wall. These things are incongruous; they don't really fit with a house. So we tried to utilize the design characteristics of the light switches that are already there as much as possible, while at the same time updating them to a very different set of functions and constituents. So there is a touch screen there now, which a normal light switch doesn't have, and there are these touch grooves which aren't there with a normal light switch. But we wanted to be really careful with the designing those affordances so that it's obvious how people would use it. We tried a lot of different designs and said, okay, you walk into a room, there's one of these on the wall. How do you turn the light on? And just seeing, making sure that people kind of got it and understood it intuitively. But just spending time on little things make a huge difference, like the edge bevels and the radius of the corners, and all kinds of little details that make a profound difference in how you feel about it. We wanted it to look like part of a house. We wanted it to look natural in a real house next to a piece of crown molding, and not just in a gleaming glass and steel penthouse apartment built last year. So there was a lot of process we went through to try to make sure that it was familiar at the same time that it was presenting a lot of new capabilities. And I'm proud of what we accomplished with that. There was so much engineering that went into making it really thin, so it kind of seems like a normal light switch plate there rather than something jutting out from the wall. We had to do custom camera modules and custom PIR lenses and all kinds of work on the thermals and so on to be able to accomplish that. But I think it really pays off, even if you might not say anything if it was a millimeter or two thicker, but you'd feel it. It seems different on the wall. So there's a lot of engineering work that goes into then fulfilling the design vision that you have.
Yeah, those details make a big difference. I can imagine. Let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about your guys' go-to-market strategy. I see on the website you work with builders, multifamily owner and operators. You've got a Brilliant Pro program, direct to consumer as well. So touch on each of those different channels and maybe some of the unique challenges and things that you've encountered with your strategy in each of them.
Yeah, homes are really interesting because there are so many different ways that people put things in their homes. And you sort of need to be able to reach all of them when you want something that has that ultimately powers every home, and that's really what our ambition is. So we sell direct to consumers. We have mostly been doing that on our own website, but we're actually now also available on HomeDepot.com and on Amazon.com, and there are more sites coming out, also available on Crutchfield. So there are a number of different e-commerce sites that you can buy direct to consumer. Our own website is very information rich and is a good channel there for us. We'll be stay tuned for some experiments in physical retail that we've sort of put off due to the whole COVID situation, and just wanted to make sure that situation is normalized before we're trying to learn too much from it. And then working with builders is really rewarding because builders are being pulled by home buyers. If you think about who buys a new home, most of the homes that are bought in the U.S. are used homes, that's the bulk of the market. If you're buying a brand new home, you want something modern. you're sort of making a statement by buying a brand new home that you want a modern home. And the home buyers now are largely millennials. Like they grew up with iPad as their first toy. They're very comfortable with technology, and for them, modernity means technology. And yet, even brand new homes have been offered with very little built-in technology. And even if they have maybe a smart thermostat and a smart lock or something like that, there's nothing that ties it together, and they can come and see and make it and have it feel like a modern home, and not just a home with a couple things bolted on. So they have a strong pull there, and they've found that when they can put in a brilliant controls and have that be an integrated smart home system that people can walk into the home and say, oh, wow, what's that? Oh, check it out. Look, I can control all this stuff. And look, hey, ring the doorbell. Oh, there you are. That helps sell the houses. It turns the houses over more quickly. And we're the only company that allows you to do that, to build smart home control in at a price point that isn't just for a multi-million-dollar home, but can actually be, for a $300,000 home. And that's kind of a remarkable thing. And what we found working with builders is we initially expected that they would make us like an optional upgrade package, like granite countertops or hardwood floors or upgraded cabinets or something like that. Instead, what they've done pretty much across the board is they've made Brilliant standard in every single home that they sell, because the value is so outstrips the price that it's kind of just a no-brainer that on all of their houses are really differentiated. So builders have been really great to work with, and we're just gearing up. We with a lot of multifamily. You mentioned apartments. Apartment living is also very, very important. And similar to with homes, you want to define an ecosystem of devices that interoperate well with one another and have a consistent user experience. So when the apartment is shown and somebody goes and looks at it, they see how it all works. They're excited by it. Maybe they bring some of their own stuff. Maybe they bring their own Sonos device or whatever. But it's something that they can easily sort of use and make their own. So that's really the process that we've gone through with those markets, and that's been really, really rewarding. So we have over 140 builders now who are building Brilliant into their homes, and that's increasing all the time. And we're going to be making some announcements in just a week or two about what we're doing in the multifamily space. But,
great.
We're really excited about that as well.
Yeah, that's great. And you guys have a pro program too. It looks like we have a lot of integrators, residential home technology companies who listen to the show. Talk a little bit about the Brilliant Pro program.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the key ways that we reach both builders and consumers. So for both retrofit and builders, many of our builder relationships, are with integrator relationships where they've got a trusted integrator that's their advisor and brings us in, or we have a builder and we'll bring an integrator in because they want somebody to do that. So it's a very symbiotic relationship and a really key piece of missing that of meeting the demand of that channel. And then as well, obviously for consumers, mostly from a little higher end consumers, end users, the integrators are also doing a lot of retrofit projects with Brilliant as well. It's a little bit of a change from thinking about a system like certainly a Crestron system or even a Control4 system or something like that, where you can do it a lot more quickly and at a much lower cost, but it opens up the access to a much higher volume of business as well. Because instead of one of our large builders, a partner, for example, they used to offer a Control4 upgrade option. Less than 3% of people chose that option. Now they build Brilliant into every single home they buy, and there's an integrator that's doing every one of those jobs. So the individual job is smaller, but there are 33 times as many of them. And that's
right.
that's the kind of thing that we see a lot of time working with integrators that also work with other product lines.
Yep. So you've mentioned a couple times. Let's talk price real quick. What does it cost to get Brilliant started, I guess, in my home? What should I start with? Obviously, you need a control panel. So let's start there. It looks like you have a number of model of them. What should I get?
Yeah, I mean, you should get whatever fits where you want it. So, if you kind of go and look and go, okay, I want it right here in my living room, and that's got 3 light switches in a row. So you get a 3 gang for that one, and then you go on over in the kitchen. I've got one that's a 2, and then I want a one in the bedroom where it's a 1. Then you want a 1 and a 2 and a 3. They range in price from MSRP from $299 for the single up through $449 for the quad. So it's basically $50 for each additional circuit that's there, and so that's how you pick those. And then the dimmer switches, MSRP in multi packs is $59.99. So it's a very, very economical smart lighting system, considering that has a very high quality dimming circuitry, and it has the motion sensor for occupancy based lighting, and it has the ability to run all the home automation scenes through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you've been to Florida too much, but we may need some 6 gang versions down here.
There are a few homes, mostly kind of older homes, that have these giant rows of switches. The biggest I've ever seen was in a commercial context, where I saw 10 rows once, and I just looked at who could ever keep track? Who could remember what these things are? But what we found was the vast majority of these are under 4. But what you can do when you have more than 4 is the brilliant dimmer switches will mix and match with those. So you can put that in as many or as few as you want, because it just takes up the same real estate that a normal Decora switch takes.
Right. Cool. Good stuff. I want to shift gears here for the last little portion of our interview and kind of talk macro entrepreneurial stuff. You're a very successful entrepreneur. You've had several successful companies before this one, and sounds like you're doing great with this one as well. So we've got a lot of entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized business owners in the audience. What are some tips that come to mind for you in terms of just generally building effective companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much to say on that topic, that it's kind of depends from person to person. But the biggest thing I would say, or the first thing, it's not necessarily the biggest, but the first question is, well, if you're going to start a business, what kind of business would it be? And I think that what's really important there is, particularly for like a tech business or something like that, if it's a services business, it's a little different, because as a services business, you can offer a service that's already well established. But if you want to build a product company, you need to differentiate. And that means you need to have an idea that's different than the idea that other people have. So you need to be a little bit contrarian. You need to kind of look and go, you know what, I think the way that this market is going is actually not right, or I disagree with some reasonable population of people about how it is. Now, obviously, the trick is it's not enough to just have an unpopular opinion. It has to be a correct unpopular opinion. But so for example, with Brilliant, we're looking at it going, everyone's controlling these things through smartphones and iPads, or at the very high end of the market, they have these multi-tens of thousands of dollars home automation systems. And that's wrong. Like, it needs to be hundreds of dollars, not tens of thousands, and it needs to be built into the home, and it needs to be an integrated smart home experience. And some people that we talk to, some investors I talk to, went, I don't think so. I think the phone is great. We go, great. I'm glad there are people out there who think I'm wrong, because that means that there aren't 100 other companies doing exactly the same thing. Because if there are 100 other companies, if you have an idea and you talk about it with people and everyone goes, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, probably not a good idea to start a product company around, because there's going to be a lot of competition and it's going to just turn into an execution game. So that's one big piece of advice. And the other one I would say is to spend some time looking in the mirror and just ask yourself, what do I bring to this problem? Why is it that I am more able to solve this problem than other people are? Because if you can come up with something that's a good idea that isn't obvious to people, and you are really the right person to do it, then you're off to a good start. And there's still a lot, that's 1% of the whole story, but at least it puts you down the right path.
Yeah, no, I think it's great advice. And you mentioned to me as we were preparing for the show, it's kind of the striking that balance between the courage of your conviction and then, sometimes running up against market feedback that says, hey, maybe what we're doing isn't quite right, maybe not. And how do you make that decision? How do you think about that?
Yeah, that's often the hardest balancing act. This is a little down the road. So this is you've figured out your contrarian position. You figured out why you're the right person to do it. You've decided on how you're attacking the market. Now you start getting market feedback. And it's no longer at that point a matter of opinion where somebody's going, I don't think that's a good idea. I do think that's a good idea. It becomes a matter of, are people buying this? How did I price it right? And all kinds of questions like this. And is there a major feature that's missing, or actually did I make it more complicated than it has to be, and people just want something simpler? And that's where you need to keep that North Star and maintain your vision of what you want for the company, but you need to take that market input really seriously and take it into account in your product thinking and your product plans. And this is why launching early and gaining market feedback is so often a good idea. Now that's situational, right? There are certain things like we had to nail the hardware platform before we could launch it because you can't go and replace that. So we had to make sure that was really, really right. So that kind of violates the rule that Reid Hoffman once said: if you're not ashamed of your version 1.0 product, then you launch too late. But that's not true for a hardware product. For a hardware product, you need to get it out there because it's going to be in the field. But then we've updated it. We do over-the-air updates every 2 weeks, and there's so many more features now than there used to be, and so much of that is guided by the feedback that we've gotten from the channel, by the feedback that we've gotten from homeowners, from the observations that we have from just instrumenting things and seeing what kinds of actions people are taking and what they're using, and helping that guide our priorities. And without being in the market and getting that input, we wouldn't have had that. But it's really challenging. You end up with a lot of these situations where you go, gosh, that's a big change. Is that something that really fits our mission or not? Or do I believe it? And so there's a time to be really stubborn and try to sort of impose your will on the market. But there are a lot of times where the market tells you what it wants, and you have to be humble enough to hear it and to do it. So a lot of what we've done, like the smart dimmer switches and the plugs and some of the upcoming stuff in multifamily, is a very direct result of requests that we've had from our customers in terms of what they would like to have from us. And you have to take that very strongly into account.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And I think a lot of the product talk about lean development and getting things out there quickly is very, very valid and true, but context dependent. And obviously, when you're talking about a hardware product, as you pointed out, that's a different beast altogether. And I'm always amazed as somebody who works in and around product, not on the hardware side. I'm always sort of looking in awe at hardware companies. I know that's a whole different ball of wax. One last question here before we kind of wrap things up. You are a holder of over 100 patents, and that's really an impressive thing, especially for those of us who have never. It's kind of a black box to me. It's an enigma to me how people sort of get into this. But are there any sort of practical tips or takeaways that you might share to people who are thinking about just innovation and ingenuity in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that most invention comes from an interdisciplinary understanding that gives you a unique perspective on things. There are some that are just like, there's an advance and I'm a narrow specialist in this one thing and I have an advancement on it. But a lot of these things really come from taking domain knowledge that you have from one area and applying it to another. So a diversity of experience can really help, and just an intellectual curiosity about how the way that things work in other fields. I'll give you an example from my last business there. My last company was a company called Shopkick, and it was and is the number one mobile retail app and the number one mobile rewards program. And we offered rewards for people walking into stores. So we walk into a Target or a Macy's or a Best Buy or whatever, and you get rewards there. So we had to invent a way of figuring out when somebody walked into the stores. This was before BLE and so on. So we came up with the idea of doing that with ultrasonic audio that's modulating data and picked up through the microphone of the telephone handset. Now, I don't know if I would have had that fundamental idea, and obviously a team of people that implemented it, but the basic idea. If I hadn't just totally coincidentally been on the standardization committee for the V.34 modem, which was like the last pure analog modem standard 20 years earlier, and understood something about modem data pumps and so on. And what we ended up doing was quite different than that, but it sort of was a thing that I might have thought of because of my earlier experience there, that turned out to be quite innovative and unique and valuable for this. So, and similarly, we've taken a lot of ideas and technologies from smartphones and from tablets and so on, and it's a very different technology architecture that we have with Brilliant than the other systems that are out there, because we've been able to take a more advanced or different technical understanding and apply it to the domain and come up with something that's both simpler, easier to configure, easier to use, and much, much less expensive.
So that's really interesting, and I have to just ask one follow-up on that. Connect the dots for me, because I'm not quite sure I'm connecting the modem with this ultrasonic sound that you guys use. So elaborate on that a little bit for me.
Oh, Jason.
Well, without delving too deeply into trellis coding, what a modem does is the modem stands for modulator demodulator, and what it means is it's basically it's modulating or demodulating data on an analog channel. And in particular, the early phone-based modems were using an analog channel that was designed for voice transmission. So, the idea is you have a stream of bits, and then you have this analog channel. How do you communicate between two digital things, through whether it's a wire or, in this case, just a room full of air? And given that it was a room full of air, a natural way to do that is with sound. I say natural because there's this microphone on the built into your handset, and so the techniques that you would use to translate data through the air is a modem. I mean, it's an open air acoustic modem, which is a different thing that hadn't been done before necessarily, but it's still the fundamental idea is similar to a conventional modem.
Love it. Very cool.
I'm pretty sure I was a Shopkick consumer at some point. I know my wife was, because I remember us talking. And did Shopkick ship this product or no? Because I swear somebody had it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think at the time I left, we had about 11 million users, and all of the major retail chains except for Walmart.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It was.
I remember my wife talking about it, and she was like, "Oh, they use sound. So when you walk into like Best Buy, it would hear the sound coming out." So that's really cool. Very, very cool. So back on track here. What do you what's next for Brilliant? I know you've mentioned MU a couple of times, but what do you see as the big opportunities here in the connected home?
Yeah, I mean, there's tremendous, just growth potential with what we're doing now, because we're just scratching the surface with it's tens of thousands now, but it'll be quickly hundreds of thousands and millions of homes out there. International, obviously, there's a big push there, but then also a lot of people live in apartments and not in single family residences, and bringing smart technology to them with probably more of a focus than you might otherwise see on the tenant experience there, but then combining that with the kinds of cost savings, operational efficiencies, and largely just sort of reducing the time to turnover, increasing the turnover of apartment units is really something that we're focusing on, and we'll be doing some announcements there. And then, as you can see from the launches of the Switch and the Plug, we have a pretty active product development pipeline, and we'll have additional products there, as well as just constant updates on new functions. So we're always rolling out new integrations. We just rolled out the integration with the Genie smart garage door opener, for example, and we've got some that are in beta right now that'll be rolling out in the next couple of weeks, and it's just a constant rolling set of new features and functionality and so on. But yeah, we really see this as someone needs to provide the user experience to enable every home to be smart, and whatever fulfills that mission is what we'll do. That's another piece of entrepreneurial advice. Like, know what your mission is. Like, people sometimes think like the mission statement, and it's not so much about wordsmithing the mission statement as it is about really knowing what it is that your business exists for, and making sure that everything you do serves that purpose.
Very good, very good. Well, how can if I'm interested and want to pick up one of these Brilliants, how can I learn more? Where can I go out there on the internet to find out more about Brilliant?
Yeah, just go to www.brilliant.tech, and that's .tech. And there are sort of microsites there for integrators and for builders and so on, as well as the information that's there for consumers, and easy ways to reach out to us from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Aaron. We really appreciate it. This is a really fun conversation, and keep us posted. Definitely wish you all the best with the product moving forward, and we'll look forward to seeing what you guys are able to do.
Well, thanks so much. It was a pleasure talking.
All right, well, that'll do it for our interview with Aaron. And again, really enjoyed it, learning not just about the product and their approach to the market, which I found cool and unique, but also getting to know Aaron a little bit and learning about his background and some of his tips for sort of innovation and entrepreneurship. I thought were really fun to pick his brain about.
Yeah. Brilliant's been it's kind of one of those products. I think you brought this up in the interview. It's kind of like you look at it and it's kind of, I don't know, you can either love it or hate it. And initially when I saw it, I didn't like it very much. But now that I look at it more and more, and I can kind of I can see what they're doing, and they definitely have iterated on the product. Like you can see that they've been putting some time into refining how it looks over time. Now that I can see what they're doing with it, I really wish when I was running these jobs, I really wish I had something like simple like this where I could just pop it in the house and just call it a day. There you go. You have a smart home. It's just one device, a few $100s. It gets you in the door and starts going. There were tons of home builders would have just appreciated something like that, and then have somebody like me to come in and set the thing up and program it. So I'm really interested in seeing where they go with this thing, because it's looking better and better for sure.
Yeah, I think it fits into a kind of an interesting little niche between just more of like a pure play DIY type of product, and then not up at the cost or level per se of like a Control4 system. So it kind of sits in a middle ground there, and I can see that being very attractive to builders and multifamily owners and things like that. So that seems to be the angle they're coming at it from pretty clearly, and again, it seems like it's a good fit there. So enjoyed chatting with Aaron, and we appreciate him coming on. Let's move on from there, Seth. We've got a mailbag, a good mailbag entry this week from friend of the show, Robert. I am not going to read all of this. It was a very long thoughtful email, and covers a whole bunch of different stuff. But a couple of things we wanted to talk about here, related to some of the conversations we've been picking up lately around productivity and different apps and things like that. We're getting a lot of good feedback on that stuff, and this was some of it we wanted to share. So a couple of things I wanted to point out here that Robert said that I thought were particularly salient. Number one, most important thing I've learned is that productivity tools are very personal. There is no perfect app for every task. Don't feel bad if you don't like an app that someone else swears by. Also, don't be afraid to try something new or different and give it a fair shake.
It's great advice.
Great point. I sort of harp on that a lot. I'm a geek for this stuff, and I'll talk to people at work and I'll say, hey, here's how I do things. But I'm always sort of feeling like I have to qualify it a little bit and say, like, this may or may not work for you. And so I think right on point there. And then he goes on to say, Seth, if you like good notes on the iPad, take a look at Notability. Very similar, but has the ability to record audio. It's a huge difference for Robert. He says, when I am in client meetings or vendor training, I record the entire audio of the meeting. So even if my note-taking sucks, I can go back and listen to the recording and fill in what I missed. So a little tip for you there. Notability, again, is the one he mentioned. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention out of this particular email, there was a lot of other good stuff in here, but he did mention an app that I've been hearing a lot about lately called Bear. This is a handwritten drawing notes. It's a note-taking app, but one that a lot of people are really swearing by. And
you can type
a couple of things
too. Like it has like
standard lists. Thank you for clarifying that. I did a terrible job of setting that up. But he mentions a few things in here that he likes about it. Can be set to a blank sheet, so really focus on writing and nothing else. Got a tagging system I've heard a lot of people say good things about. Backup and export options, export to Markdown and PDF files. So Bear's one that I've definitely heard about. In fact, I think it was in the hub that Robert may have mentioned this one to me, and I've heard other people that I work with use it as well. So that's another one to check out. So Bear and Notability, according to this email from Robert. If you're listening and into this stuff, those are two that you should have on your radar.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them both a try. Why not? Why not? It looks like it's
That's right. So easy to experiment these days.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's so many different things that you can get into. Basically, what it boils down to me is like, if I have something or a thought, like what's the quickest way I can get it out of my head, put it somewhere where I can get back to it later. Typically, that's drafts, just because it's so lightweight. But I'm open to checking something else out.
Yeah.
So
he goes on to try to talk me into an iPad. I have a lot of people trying to talk me into an iPad now.
You got to get the 12.9. He says the big one, the big boy, and it looks like you're going to have to get the nice touch, the keyboard with the mouse thing, the trackpad on it. You're gonna have to get that. And when you get the big boy, you got to get you can't get the little chump pencil like I did, like $100. No, you may as well spend like $200 because I think that's not what it costs. So. Yeah, you're gonna have to go all in.
Can't skimp out.
No.
It feels like this is all or nothing.
Oh, it is literally all or nothing because there's no way you can go in between the two. Like if I went out and I said, oh, I need the 12.9 iPad Pro, I don't think this pen actually works with that iPad. Like you have to have the nice pen to work with the iPad. But what I will say about the iPad Pro and the pen, like this one has that ridiculous like charging thing where you have to like stick it in, harpoon it into the bottom of the iPad. That was a horrible design. And the iPad Pro has a little magnet thing that you stick it on top of the screen and that's
harpoon.
Yeah.
Bad choice there, huh?
Yeah.
Total separate interaction, but with Robert, who's been very engaged this week. Seth, he's like, I feel like he's talking me back from the ledge of ripping my Mac Mini apart,
Robert,
which I still haven't done.
What have you done? I am so upset right now. You just don't understand. You give me this nice Amazon one for the museum, and then I find out you're behind my back telling Jason not to put the SSD in his. And no, Jason, this has taken a year, Robert. It's taken a year to get to this point.
Robert may have just undone a year of progress with like one Slack message.
Don't listen.
The thing that keeps playing through my mind that he said in Slack, he's like, even I wouldn't do that.
Oh, okay. All right. I've done it many times, Jason. You can do it. It's not hard. And
we'll see.
If you copy it and then you check it, like I gave you the instructions on how to do it. You copy it, you trust but verify, right? Like you trust it, you verify that it works, then you take your computer apart, stick it in there, and say boot to this drive, and boom, you're done. That's all you have to do, and you're done.
See, when you say it like that, it sounds so easy. Anyways, we'll figure it out. Seth and I have been corresponding. There's Robert's mentioning using just an external SSD, something he does that says obviously much easier from a front end initial setup standpoint, and he says plenty fast. There's another option, Seth, you and I have been talking about where it appears my Mac Mini might have a PCI compatible SSD I've looked at several videos and it looks like orders of magnitude easier to install than the one I got. So it does look like the vendor that I bought this from is going to let me exchange it. And so that's where the process is at now. I'm basically deciding, do I want to exchange it and go the PCI route, or am I going to let Robert scare me into not taking the computer apart at all?
This is going to take another year. I know it is.
It could at this rate.
This is going to be another year. We're gonna come at the show. It'll be show like 413, and we're not even going to be past this SSD.
That's the over under.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, oh man, Jason's going to have this thing up and going. He's gonna be like, how fast is my computer now, Seth? And no, thanks, Robert. I appreciate it. No, we're gonna get you
thank
upgraded.
Robert for that one.
We're gonna get you upgraded.
We'll get there one way or the other. I mean, if I don't do anything, this hard drive is going to die. I can feel it. So you've got that working in your favor.
There
Seth.
you go. Yo, you gotta move your basic the. I think all you do is this podcast on this thing. You don't actually do anything.
That's it. That's it.
There's really little motivation other than like 1 hour every week to do anything.
That's the problem. Like if it just survives Wednesday evening recording sessions, I'm good.
Oh man,
There's no urgency.
Oh, you're gonna swap that thing out, and you're going to crank it up, and it's going to be a brand new computer. And you're going to be like, wow, why haven't I done this?
Why did I wait so long?
Why did I wait?
You're right. I know you're right. Anyways, the saga continues. Shifting gears here quickly, staying on the sort of productivity front, quick pick of the week. We'll move through this one quickly. A lot of people may already know about this one, certainly not new, but Grammarly. Grammarly has announced recently more advanced features are coming to Google Docs. So that's why this kind of landed on my radar. Grammarly is, for those who are not familiar, it's like a spell check on steroids. It's basically how I describe it. So it's that same idea of checking your spelling, but it's checking your grammar, and it does a really, really excellent job. As somebody who writes a lot of blog posts and different, emails, whatever the case may be, I love it. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I use the free version. There is a paid version as well. So you can use either and you'll get great results out of it. But I recommend it to everybody who I talk to about any sort of writing. It's an absolute no-brainer, in my opinion, to have Grammarly running because it's going to identify a lot of the things that a spell checker won't, like broken sentences or missing words, things of that nature. And again, the advanced version is going to detect a lot more optimizations, but even the free version is going to do a good job at finding just broken sentences and glaring sort of grammatical issues that I've found as somebody who writes a lot. It's maddening to me how blind you go to these things, right? You've been staring at the same email you've been writing for an hour, and you've looked at this sentence 1,000 times. It's missing a word, but somehow your brain just doesn't see it. You're blind to it. So something like Grammarly is a great thing to have running. So that was my pick of the week this week.
Good pick of the week. I've been running them, I think about a year now, as I figured out. And yeah, it makes you sound smarter. Well, it makes you look smarter because you're not missing punctuation or have bad grammar. It doesn't make you sound any smarter, but it does. One thing I don't like on this thing is the judginess that it has, though. Like, it's like, this sounds very business-like. I'm like, I'm not trying to be business-like. And then when I'm trying to be business-like, it's like, this sounds fun and playful. I'm like, I'm trying to write terms and conditions. What are you talking about?
Being very judgmental, Grammarly.
Yeah. So it does help me.
Yeah, I think that's like a relatively new thing. They came out with like the tone checker or something.
Yeah. It does help me find all those commas that my wife, when she used to go through and proofread some things here and there for me, and she's like, "Why do you hate commas? You need a comma there in that sentence." My wife is an English major from way back in the day.
Commas. Yeah. That's a delicate one.
I just bypass them. Like, evidently my brain just
you just keep it easy. Just don't use them.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden the little thing highlights in red. Why that word's not misspelled? No, it's the comma. So good stuff. Good pick.
Well, the big thing here, again, to close out, I mentioned they're bringing advanced features to Google Docs. It wasn't long ago, if you used Grammarly, that it didn't even work in Google Docs. You had to copy the text out of Google Docs and go paste it into the Grammarly site to have it run and then move it back. It now works pretty well in Google Docs. So that was a big thing for me because we work in all Google Docs at our company. So it appears to be getting more and more functional inside of Google Docs, which is a great thing. So if you're not using something like that, go check it out.
If you have any feedback, questions, comments, picks of the week, or great ideas for the show, or, ideas for productivity for us, our email address is feedback@HomeTech.fm, or you can visit HomeTech.fm/feedback and fill out the online form.
And as we do every week, we want to give a big shout out to everybody who supports and listens to the show, but especially those of you who are able to financially contribute to our efforts through our Patreon page. To learn more, head over to HomeTech.fm/support and learn how you can support our efforts here for as little as $1 a month. Any pledge over $5 will give you a big shout out on air, but every single pledge gets you an invite to our private Slack chat, The Hub, where you and other supporters of the show can gather every day for inside baseball conversations about hacks that make your devices catch on fire.
Yeah, the day was measuring incorrectly. It was not a very good day for James. He had to throw away about a few $1,000s in shading because he spec'd wrong.
Oh, the classic.
Custom lines, yeah. Biggest fear ever. I never messed up, but knock on wood.
Broken tape measure.
Oh man, that was always nervous. Measure like 10 times. But if you
as somebody who like struggles a little bit with sort of obsessive compulsive nature, I never enjoyed measuring shades.
No, not at all. Knowing that like any mistake is thousands of dollars and there's nothing you can do
And
about
you like
it.
psych yourself out.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I felt like I was so worried about it that I was actually more likely to make a mistake
Right.
than if I just chilled out about the whole thing.
Yep. And you see like the people that do shades, they just come in and they're like whoosh, 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 done, and they
Yeah.
walk out and you're like, he doesn't care about his money. So, yeah. Well,
Make it look easy.
if you'd like to help out but can't support financially, we'd appreciate a 5-star review on iTunes or positive rating in the podcast app of your choice. We're shooting for those 5 stars, and it helps other people. Helps other people find out about the show. That's really what we're looking for. So, thanks very much for listening. And Jason, that wraps up this week.
It does.
What are we doing next week? Are we off next week?
So next week, I am. Listeners to the show will recall my wife and I took our kids up to the mountains here in Colorado to an area called Grand Lake about a month ago, I think a little over a month ago, maybe. And we just had such a nice time up there that we've decided to squeeze in one more trip here before the summer ends. And maybe the kids go back to school. I think. I'm not really sure. Anyways, we're sneaking up to the mountains for a few days again.
There you go.
Next week. So looking forward to that.
Very nice. Get away. Get back into nature. That's the way to do it.
That's right.
Totally. I'm jealous again. I wasn't jealous enough the first time. You got to do it this time. So
yeah, it's just, we had a really busy year of travel planned. We had a couple of weddings on my wife's family and friends. And so we've been saving up, and we had a budget built up for all this travel, and then COVID hit and all that money is there. And so we're holding on to most of it, obviously, because those weddings are going to be rescheduled. But we have, we had a little bit of a fund for some travel this summer, and it's just good to get out of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, it's like your spring. Every day you're sitting at home, you're just winding up, and as soon as that door opens,
That's right.
Head on out as fast as you can.
That's it. So those are my plans next week.
Well, I'll see if I can sit down and record either a solo one, or I'm trying to get somebody in to help out with it as well. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm going to get hit by lightning if I don't get off the computer, though. Holy cow. I don't know if you can hear this thing.
No,
But
I can't.
We have some, it must be good rejection on the mics in, but like
Big
there have
storm
been some
going
really
through.
close strikes. Yeah.
Well, I was going to suggest that maybe next week you can get Robert to be your co-host, and you guys can arm wrestle over.
Only if he has an SSD, Jason. Only if he...
Anyways, all right, cool. Well, fun episode this week, Seth. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to sitting back down with you here in just about a couple of weeks.
All right, sounds good, Jason. Have a good time. Have a good gym.
Thank you. Appreciate it.